Hello, welcome to this tutorial, and our major emphasis is going to be carbon dioxide transport. In the previous tutorial, we talked about the Bohr effect, and we said that the Bohr effect is caused by a high concentration of carbon dioxide in the cellular tissues where oxygen is being transported. And in presence of this high concentration of carbon dioxide, it dissociates, that is, carbon dioxide dissociates to form hydrogen and hydrogen carbonate, of which the hydrogen carbonate is going to diffuse out of the red blood cells into the blood plasma, and then it is carried in that solution. So, we are saying that our products of dissociation of carbon dioxide are basically hydrogen ions and hydrogen carbonate ions. And of course, the dissociation is favored by carbonic anhydrase, which catalyzes a reaction between carbon dioxide and water to form a weak carbonic acid, and then the weak carbonic acid dissociates into hydrogen ions and hydrogen carbonate ions. About 85% of carbon dioxide is transported by blood in this form, that is, in the hydrogen carbonate form within the blood plasma. Some of the carbon dioxide does not dissociate, and this remains as carbon dioxide molecules, and about 5% of this is dissolved in blood and also carried in a molecular form. So, like we had said, 85% of carbon dioxide is carried in the hydrogen carbonate form. Then 5% of the carbon dioxide is carried in a molecular form within the blood plasma. The remaining 10% of the carbon dioxide diffuses in red blood cells and combines directly with the terminal amine groups of some of the hemoglobin molecules. So, the 10% of that carbon dioxide will just combine with these amine groups, and then it is going to be transported in that form. Now, when the carbon dioxide molecules have combined with these amine groups that are found on the hemoglobin, a compound is formed, and the name of this compound is called carbaminohemoglobin compound. That is carbaminohemoglobin compound. When blood reaches the lungs, where there is a low concentration of carbon dioxide in the alveoli compared to the concentration of carbon dioxide in the lungs, then reverse reactions take place. That is, hydrogen ions will again combine with the hydrogen carbonate ions to form the weak carbonic acid, which then is converted back to carbon dioxide and water. Then the carbon dioxide molecules diffuse out of the blood into the alveolar space, whereby they will now diffuse out of the alveoli into the air sac and then out of the lungs. The carbon dioxide that was carried along with the hemoglobin molecules as carbaminohemoglobin also leaves the red blood cells and diffuses out of the red blood cells into the alveolar space. This leaves the hemoglobin molecules free and ready to combine with oxygen, and the whole process resumes again. That is for transporting oxygen. When the hemoglobin, of course, is left free, it becomes easier for oxygen to combine with hemoglobin. When you check out in the biology course book, 4th edition, Cambridge International AS and A level, written by Mary Jones and the rest, there is a diagrammatic representation showing or explaining how carbon dioxide is transported within blood. If you have the capacity to check out on this book, then check it out and you'll have that quick summary of carbon dioxide transport within blood. So that was to do with carbon dioxide transport. Now we want to look at the problems that are associated with oxygen transport. Problems associated with oxygen transport. The efficient transport of oxygen around the body can be impaired by many different factors or can be affected by many different factors. And one of these factors that we are going to discuss is carbon monoxide. Although hemoglobin combines with oxygen readily, it has been found out that hemoglobin combines very rapidly or readily with carbon monoxide. And this combination is irreversible, or you cannot separate the carbon monoxide from the hemoglobin once they have combined. Carbon monoxide is formed when a carbon-containing compound burns incompletely, or it burns in limited supply of oxygen. Cigarettes or cigarette smoke also contain carbon monoxide. Exhaust fumes of cars contain a high concentration of carbon monoxide. When these fumes are inhaled, the carbon monoxide readily diffuses across the walls of the alveoli into the blood and into the red blood cells, where it combines with the heme group in the hemoglobin molecules to form carboxyhemoglobin compound. So when carbon monoxide combines with hemoglobin, we form carboxyhemoglobin. More molecules of hemoglobin combine readily with carbon monoxide to form carboxyhemoglobin. The carboxyhemoglobin molecule that is formed is more stable, and therefore carbon monoxide can remain combined to the hemoglobin for a long time. The molecule is more stable, and that's why the carbon monoxide will remain combined to hemoglobin for a long time. And this may result into death due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide poisoning can be reversed only in presence of pure oxygen at high concentrations. The high concentrations of this pure oxygen can favor the combination of hemoglobin with oxygen. The other problem associated with oxygen transport is high altitude. We obtain our oxygen from the air around us, and at sea level, the partial pressure of oxygen in the atmosphere is just over 20 kilopascals, and the partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolus in the lungs is about 13 kilopascals. And if you compare these partial pressures with that in the oxygen dissociation curve for hemoglobin, you will see that at this partial pressure of oxygen, hemoglobin is almost completely saturated with oxygen. That is at 13 kilopascals. You'll find that almost all the hemoglobin is saturated with oxygen. If, however, a person climbs a mountain to a height of 6,500 meters, then the air pressure is much less, and thus the partial pressure of oxygen in the air is only about 10 kilopascals, and that in the lungs is about 5.3 kilopascals. So when you compare these kilopascals with the saturation of oxygen from the oxygen dissociation curve, you'll find that hemoglobin is only about 70% saturated in the lungs, which means that less oxygen will be carried around the body, and the person may begin to feel breathless and ill. An increase in altitude affects the percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen. That is, there is a reduction in the partial pressures of oxygen, and therefore there will be a less saturation of oxygen within the hemoglobin. And therefore, you will find that a person who climbs up a mountain will have breathless and illness is because there is less oxygen being carried around the body, just simply because the hemoglobin that is saturating around the body is less saturated with oxygen. If this person quickly travels down, then the illnesses can be reverted, since the partial pressures are going to increase, resulting in higher saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen. If a person travels quickly over a period after a few days from sea level to a very high altitude, the body does not have enough time to adjust to the changes in high altitude, and therefore there will be an oxygen drop, and this person may suffer from altitude sickness. This altitude sickness is going to be caused by lack of sufficient oxygen to support body respiration, and the symptoms of the altitude sickness may frequently begin with increase in the rate and the depth of breathing. Why is there an increase in the rate and the depth of breathing? This is to increase the amount of oxygen that is reaching the lungs. There is also feeling of dizziness and weakness. But all these symptoms can be reversed by going down to a lower altitude. Some people may become very ill because the arterioles in their brains dilate to increase the amount of blood flowing into capillaries, so that the fluid begins to leak from capillaries into the brain tissues. Remember when we talked about tissue fluid formation? When there is dilation of the arterioles, that means we shall have much fluid leaking out of the capillaries into the tissue space, and this can increase the tissue fluid around the brain tissues, and this in turn can affect the working of the brain. So we are saying that the leaking of this fluid can cause disorientation, and thus preventing the brain from functioning properly. Acute altitude sicknesses can be fatal, and a person suffering from it must be brought down to a low altitude immediately or given enough oxygen. If the body is given plenty of time to adapt, then most of the people can cope up at high altitudes, even up to 5,000 meters. Most of the mountain climbers do this training so that their bodies can adapt to these high altitudes. If the body adapts, therefore it becomes more efficient for it to even respire at low oxygen concentrations. To summarize the whole point, high altitudes result into low oxygen intake since there will be a low saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen, and low altitudes result into high oxygen intake, and this is because the hemoglobin will be highly saturated with oxygen. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get back to you later, and we wish you all the best in your endeavors. Thank you.